Muse for you, awesome websites without code.
Hey, what's up users? John with Muse for You, here to help you build awesome websites without code. And welcome to episode 4 of the GSAP and Adobe Muse series. So I decided to title this video the portfolio page trend because I've been getting this request quite a bit of creating a portfolio page where when you hover over the different words within the portfolio, an image or a GIF appears. So I've gotten this request quite a few times, so I'm thinking it's a trend. I did find a few pages and was sent a few websites that have this effect, so I decided to recreate it in Adobe Muse using the Muse Motion widget. So here I have an example. It says, "I'm John Ramos. I am a web developer building widgets for Adobe Muse. I'm from outer space. In my free time, I like to watch basketball and play Zelda on my Nintendo Switch. Find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Send me an email." So at first it just looks like text, but then we have these underlined words. So here we see it says, "I'm John Ramos." So when I hover over, it's a picture of me. Here I'm at a cafe, so you get to see an image of me when you hover over the name John Ramos. And then I am a web developer building widgets for Adobe Muse. So when you hover over web developer, we have the different website platforms and the different coding languages for websites. And these GIFs are found at giphy.com, and I'll go to that website in a second. And then here it says, "I'm from outer space." So we have Bill Nye the Science Guy saying space is freaking cool. So it is a fun kind of thing for a user to go to or to kind of see when they go to a portfolio page. We have these interesting GIFs, and you can have images and things like that as well. So in my free time, I like to watch basketball. So here's Stephen Curry. I think this was his a few games ago where I think the Warriors are still getting into the rhythm of, playing, and Steph is usually a bit more graceful when he does his dance. So on Giphy, there was this GIF of him. And then I like to play Zelda on my Nintendo Switch. So this is the Zelda on the Breath of the Wild, where Link is parachuting from a cliff. So that's also found on Giphy. So these, I didn't link these to anything because I just wanted to show a few examples. I'll show where to access some of the GIFs as well. So I did get inspired from this site here, jenniferbin.com. I'm not affiliated with this site at all, but it kind of has that effect of when you create a portfolio page and you hover over the different words, different images appear. All right, looks good. So in this tutorial, we're going to recreate this portfolio page. We're going to be using the Muse Motion widget found at museforyoushop.com, and we're going to be using GIFs from giphy.com. So if you go to giphy.com, I'll leave a link in the show more section below. You just have a whole bunch of GIFs. You can search for GIFs. I wouldn't recommend staying on the site for too long because you might go crazy with all the different GIFs and things like that. So it's just really interesting website, but you can download the GIFs. You can click on it, and then here there's a download button. So if you click here, you can download the source. Usually I download the source. You can download it for social, an MP4, or a small version of the GIF. So with all the GIFs that I've used on my portfolio page, I've used the source here and I've just clicked download. So I recommend downloading from Google Chrome. For some reason, when I use Safari, it doesn't download the GIF the correct way. So on Google Chrome, it easily downloads the GIF by clicking download. All right, so I have a few GIFs in my images folder here. So these are all downloaded from Giphy, and then I have the image of myself. So this is the website we'll be building in this tutorial. So let's get started. So here, let me maximize this here. So I'll build a new site. I'll go to File, New Site, and I'll click OK. And then I'll double click on the home page. So the first thing I want to do here is add the text. So I have a text file with that text. So here I'll hit Command C to copy, and then I'll hit Command V to paste into Muse. So right now it's just text, it's not formatted. So I'll just double click, highlight the text, and I'll format the text here. So I'll make the text, I'll say Roboto Slab. The text size, I'll say 27. I believe it's 27, let me double check. I'll reference this site here. Yep, it's 27. And then I'll select the color from my CC libraries, and I'll add it to the swatches panel. So I'll right click and select add to swatches. And I'll highlight the text, and in the color, I'll make it that color there. All right, and that's all I have to do there to format the text. And I'll make the text box a little bit wider and just place it somewhere here. Okay, so there I have the text. So the next thing I want to do is start with the text that I want to kind of be a trigger for an image or a GIF. So the first one is here, I'm John Ramos. So let me zoom in here. So I'm going to highlight this text. I'm going to hit Command C to copy, and then I'm going to hit Command V to paste. And we see it creates a text box with just the text John Ramos. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in and just place it over the text John Ramos. And I can make the text box a little bit smaller. And then what I'm going to do here is hold down Command L to lock that text box so I don't select it. Or you can go to Object with the text box selected. You can go to Object and select Lock there. So it's Command L or Object and Lock. So now when I select the text box, I can't select that particular text box. So now with the entire text selected, I'm going to double click and delete the John Ramos that's behind the current that's behind just the name. So I'll hit backspace to delete it, and now we just have that text box there. We don't have the word John Ramos behind it. Okay, so I'll do that a few more times just to showcase what I did. So basically, if I move this text box, we can see it just says I'm, and there's no John Ramos. So we're just replacing that text with its own text box so we can make it a trigger. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll go to Object and I'll say Unlock All on Page. So now I can select this text box. So let me zoom out here. So we can see we have this larger text box and we have this text box here. Okay, so what I want to do now is assign a graphic style name to this text box. So with it selected, I'll go to the graphic styles panel here to the right. If you don't see the graphic styles panel, you can go to Window and click on Graphic Styles. And here I'll give it the graphic style name Trigger1, because that's the graphic style name we're going to assign to the Muse Motion widget. So I'll just say Trigger1. So let me just repeat that actually. And so to create a new graphic style, you just click on this icon here, double click on Style, and then here I'll type in Trigger1. Okay, and let me bring in the Muse Motion widget so it makes a bit more sense as to what I'm doing. So to bring in the Muse Motion widget, you can simply go to the Library panel. And if you don't see the Library panel, you can go to Window and click on Library. Okay, and here I'm going to type in Muse Motion, and I'll scroll down, and I'm going to bring in Muse Motion, one motion. We only need one motion for this, and that's going to be changing the opacity from 0 to 1. So here I have the Muse Motion widget, and if I open the widget options, here we can see the different options. And for the motion start, I want to say on hover with reverse, because I want the user, when the user hovers over the trigger, I want it to show, and then when they hover off of it, I want the image to disappear. So for the trigger graphic style name, we're going to say Trigger1. Okay, and for the graphic style name, I'm going to say Motion1. Okay, and then for the motion, I'll go here in the motion, enable Motion1. We're going to say animation start. We're going to say 2. Transform property, we're going to say opacity, and the value is going to be 1, and the unit of measurement is none. The opacity doesn't need a unit of measurement. The duration, I'm going to say 0. I don't want the image to fade in or anything like that. For the easing option, I'm going to say linear, and for the easing type, I'm going to say ease none. All right, and now that we have the widget in there, I'm going to add an image. So I'm going to go to the rectangle tool here to the left. I'll create a rectangle, and I'll fill this rectangle with an image. So I'll go to Fill, Add Image, and then I have this image of me, and I'll select that image. Then I'll say, for the fitting, I'll say Scale to Fill, and Position in the center. Okay, so there's the image of me. For this image, I'm going to send it to the back, so I'm going to right click, Arrange, and Send to Back, so it's behind the text. And I'm going to pin this text box to the left, responsive pin to the left, so it stays relative to the left side of the browser. For this effect, I only recommend it for desktops and laptops, so I would just work with it on the larger breakpoints. And then for tablet and mobile, might have a different design for that. I'm also going to set the page expansion to point outward, so the page expands beyond the 960 breakpoint. So for larger screens, that text will be relative to the left. Okay, so there I have the image, and what I'm going to do now is set the opacity of this image to 0. So I'm going to go to the effects here and set the opacity to 0. So that's why in the Muse Motion, we set the opacity to 1. So it's going to go from 0 to 1 when the user hovers over trigger 1. Okay, and I'm going to set the graphic style name for this image here. I'm going to go to the graphic styles panel, create a new graphic style, and I'm going to set the graphic style to motion 1 because that's the graphic style name that's in here. So the text box has the graphic style name trigger 1. So when the user hovers, it's going to trigger the motion 1, which is the image. So let's see how that looks. I'll go to File, Preview Page, and Browser. When I hover over John Ramos, that image appears. So we can see John Ramos is separated from this text here, and that's because we have to responsive pin it to the left as well, using the responsive pin options. And then I don't want this image to resize, so I'll select it. In the resize option, I'll say none. Okay, and I'll preview. And when I hover over, there we have the image. And there, yeah, so when I hover over John Ramos, the image appears. So I'm going to repeat this process a few more times. I know it was a bit, I went over the steps not in the correct sequence, but we're going to do it a few times so you can watch exactly what I do. So here, the next thing I'm going to add a trigger to is web developer. So let me zoom in here and kind of grab it here. So I'm a web developer, so I'll copy this text and I'll paste. So there we have the text web developer, and I'll place it over web developer here. And that looks good. And I'll go to object, lock, so we don't select that text. And then I'll double click in this text box and delete web developer behind it. And then let me zoom in here. And then I'll just add spaces. So we have some spacing there. Okay. All right, and if the spacing isn't great, you can use the tracking property here, this VA symbol, to kind of create more or less spacing between the different words here. All right, so there we have it. We have I am a web developer, and the text is before it and after it. So now I'll just go to object, unlock all on page, and now I can select web developer. So here I'm going to assign the graphic style name trigger 2, and I'm going to bring in another rectangle and add a GIF to it. So I'll select the rectangle tool, just create a rectangle over here, go to the fill option, add image, and I'll select the web developer GIF, and I'll say scale to fill, position it in the center. So depending on the GIF, you might have to resize the rectangle a bit. I'm not going to spend too much time with it because I just want to showcase how to add the effect to the website. So here I'm going to select this GIF, go to the graphic styles panel, create a new graphic style, and I'm going to call this motion 2. So here I'll right click, arrange, and send to back. All right, and then I'll just copy this Muse Motion widget, copy and paste. And I also want to set the opacity of this GIF to 0. So I'll go to the effects panel, set it to 0. And here I'll just change the graphic style name to trigger 2 and motion 2. So all the settings are the same, I just have to change the graphic style names. So now when I preview, and I hover over web developer, we also have to pin it to the left, responsive pin to the left. And I don't want this rectangle to resize, so I'll say resize none, and I'll preview again. So when I hover over web developer, we have it there. Looks good. So just as an example as to why I set the page expansion to outward, because if I didn't, if these arrows are pointing inwards, the website would stop at a specific point. So here we can see it's not relative to the left. You can just picture, the 960 point like right here, and here on the right. So with the page expansion set outward, it expands to the width of the page or of the browser. All right, looks good. So one thing also, I don't want these text boxes to be responsive, so I'll select them both and I'll say resize none. All right, so now we have outer space. So I'll zoom in here, I'll double click, copy outer space and the period, and then I'll paste and just paste it over there. Looks good. And then I'll hit Command L to lock. And actually, let me make this text box a little bit smaller. So Command L to lock it, and then I'll double click in the larger text box and delete that there. Looks good. So I'll go to Object, Unlock All on Page, and here I'll give it the graphic styles. So I'll create a new graphic style, and I'll call this Trigger 3. Okay, so now I'll add another text box, and here, so I'll just place it kind of like over here. I'll go to Fill, Add Image, and this one's of Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I'll say Scale to Fill, position it in the center. All right, and we'll do something like that. Okay, and I'll assign a graphic style name to this. So double click, and I'll say Motion 3. Okay, I'll arrange send to back. I'll set the resize option to none, and the opacity, I'll set it to 0. All right, so let's see how that looks. I'll go to File, Preview Page in Browser, and outer space. Nothing's happening. Oh, because we haven't added a Muse Motion widget. So I'll hit Command C to copy and Command V to paste. And I'll go in here and just change it to Trigger 3 and Motion 3. Okay, and also outer space, responsive pin to the left. Okay, so I'll preview and outer space. So there we have it. Space is freaking cool. So it's coming along. We just have 2 more. So, and also I haven't added the underlines, and we'll do that after I've added all the images. Okay, so basketball is the next one. So I'll copy this and Command V, and I'll zoom in here and place it right there. Looks good. Okay, so I'll hit Command L to lock, then I'll highlight the larger text, delete there, and just add spaces. Okay, so I'll zoom out here, then I'll go to Object, Unlock All on Page, so I can select basketball. I'll give it the graphic style, Trigger 4, and I'll create a rectangle and just add it over here. Go to Fill, Add Image, and we have the basketball GIF. I'll say Scale to Fill, position it in the center, and we'll give it the graphic style name, Motion 4. Okay, I'll arrange send to back and resize, say none, and the opacity we'll say 0. Okay, and also for the text basketball, I'm going to responsive pin to the left and say resize none. All right, so let's see how that looks. Oh, again, I haven't added the Muse Motion widget. So I'll copy the Muse Motion widget, copy and paste, and we'll change Trigger 3 to Trigger 4 and Motion 4 to Motion 3 to Motion 4. So I'll preview, we hover over, and then we have that GIF there. So we have John Ramos, web developer, outer space, and basketball. So one last one, we have the Zelda. So here I'll zoom into Zelda. So I'll highlight it here, hit Command C to copy, then Command V to paste, and we'll make this text box a little bit smaller. And I'll just paste it right over there. Hit Command L, let me make it smaller here. Hit Command L to lock, then highlight the larger text, delete that there, and just add spaces. Okay, see how that looks. Yep, that looks pretty good. And so now I'll go to Object, Unlock All on Page, and I'll select the Zelda text right here. And I'll go to the graphic styles panel, double click here on the new style, call this trigger 5. Okay, and I'll also set the resize option to none and pin it to the left. Okay, so now I'll add another rectangle, rectangle here, and I'll create a rectangle, and I'll go to fill, add image, click on the Zelda GIF here, say scale to fill, position it in the center, and perfect. All right, so here I'll say resize none, and the opacity I'll set it to 0, and I'll give it the graphic style name Motion 5. Okay, and there we go. And then I'll copy the Motion 4 here. So there we go. And I'll change the graphic style name to Trigger 5 and Motion 5. Yeah, Motion 5. Okay, and that's basically it. So now I'll preview. And there we go. We have John Ramos, web developer, outer space, basketball, and Zelda. Looks good. So you could bring in these rectangles in a bit more, or also pin to the left, so it's kind of all relative to how it looks here within Adobe Muse. So here we can see it's a bit off to the right, but you can just play with it and just change the positioning of it. Also we can see if I change the browser size, those elements come closer to the text. All right, so there it is. I'm John Ramos. I am a web developer building widgets for Adobe Muse. I'm from outer space. In my free time, I like to watch basketball and play Zelda. So we can see, we didn't pin the text Zelda. So actually we did pin it to the left. The image just needs to be brought to the back. All right, so let's look at that one more time. And yep, there we go. So basketball and Zelda, there we go. Looks good. All right, so the last thing I'll do is I'll add those underlines underneath each of the main words that the user can hover over. So I'll just create a rectangle with the rectangle tool and just create a rectangle underneath there. I might set the height to 3 pixels, and then I'll just fill it with the same fill as the text color. All right, so I just need to add a few rectangles. I'll just copy and paste and place them underneath each word. Okay, and outer space. Okay, that looks good. And basketball. Okay, and the last one, Zelda here. All right, that looks good. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so one last time, I'll preview in the browser. And we also have to set the pinning options and the resize option the same for the rectangles. So resize, I'll say none, and pin to the left, relative to the left side of the browser. Okay, so just like that, we have our portfolio page there with the different images and GIFs. All right, looks good. So the last thing I'll do is add the font smoother, and I think we'll be done. So I'll add the font smoother light. One thing I wanted to mention as well is you can add more line height to this text. That's something I did in the first text here. You can tell a bit there's more spacing in between the different lines here. And if you did want to add line text, you just select all the text, and then here is the line height. It's going to throw everything off a bit because we didn't initially start with that line height. So I would recommend to just making sure that all the text is formatted correctly before adding the individual text boxes and assigning the Muse Motion widget to each of the text boxes. So that's it for this tutorial. Just to recap, we created the text, formatted the text. We then copied the words that we wanted to be a trigger, and we placed it over the word in the text. We locked those text boxes and deleted the word behind it, so you don't have the kind of this double word and it doesn't look bolder, and also because we wanted to assign graphic style names to the text boxes. So we added those individual text boxes. We assigned trigger 1 through 5, so trigger 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then for the rectangles, we added rectangles and filled them with GIFs and images. And we then assigned the graphic style motion 1 through 5. And for each motion widget, Muse motion widget, we set the transform to opacity, and then we set the motion value to 1, so it's fully visible. No unit of measurement, no duration, so when the user hovers, it immediately shows. And we set the easing to linear and ease none. And then for the graphic styles, we set trigger 1, motion 1. And for each trigger and graphic style from 1 through 5, we set trigger 2, motion 2, trigger 3, motion 3. And that's why there's five different Muse motions here. And then we added the underline under each of the words. That's a trigger. So I'll preview one last time. And there we go. I'm John Ramos. I'm a web developer building widgets for Adobe Muse. I'm from outer space. In my free time, I like to watch basketball and play Zelda on my Nintendo Switch. Find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Send me an email. So for these, I would just add the underline and then use the hyperlink section in Adobe Muse right up here to link to the different social media pages. And for email, it would be email : and then your email address to link to your email. So when the user clicks, it just goes to their email program. All right, so that's it for this video tutorial. To gain access to the Muse Motion widget, you simply go to museforyoushop.com, and here you can click subscribe. And here you can click subscribe now to get access to all widgets and any new widgets I come out with for $39 a year. Here we have the Muse Motion widget, which is also using GSAP. This is more for sequencing animations. And then we have the Muse Motion widget, which is right here. And here you can click add to cart to purchase individually. Or again, you can click subscribe to get access to all widgets and any new widgets I come out with for $39 a year. Here are the features included, a few of the widget options, and the changelog, and some other videos that kind of go through the Muse Motion widget. I would recommend watching the latest videos in the GSAP and Adobe Muse series because I go over the latest updates to Muse Motion, to the Muse Motion widget. So that's it for this video tutorial. Again, I do this to help you build awesome websites without code. If you like this video tutorial, you can subscribe below. Also in the show more section below are links to other resources and links to museforyoushop.com. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video tutorial. Thank you.
Muse for You, awesome websites without code.